Hi, this is Maury Moreland Morrison, here to tell you Geico has more than just great savings. Much more. Geico's been around for more than 75 years, back when they were using Morse code. Sorry, that's just my sense of humor. What's more, with Geico you get 24/7 access to licensed agents on the app, online, or over the phone, so you can talk to them at night or in the morning. So forevermore, just know that no other auto insurer has more than Geico. More power to you. Geico. Expect great savings and a whole lot more.
Napa know-how.
A Napa guy knows that by the foot, there's no better ride than an old station wagon. Room for 6 people facing forward, 2 people facing backward, and a whole lot of luggage, lumber, and bicycles haphazardly strapped to the roof. If you can parallel park that beast, you can park anything. And with some quality parts and a little Napa know-how, you can keep your land ship running longer, stronger. It's not obsolete. It's a rare treasure. That's Napa know-how.
Napa know-how. We are the New York Knicks. I'm back in the New York groove. Well, it's the Knicks. New York. We are the New York Knicks. New York. For this new season we're about to enter, the Knicks is taking no shorts, it's like winter.
New York, New York.
New York be about the Knicks, huh?
But the best thing about New York City is
K-N-I-C-K-S. Everybody say go, New York, go, New York, go!
Hey everybody, welcome to the New York Knicks podcast, episode 360, part of the Almighty Baller Podcast Network. You can check out almightyballer.com for a bunch of other really good NBA podcasts. We are the Knicks representative, obviously. We are joined here today by Jim Cavan. How you doing, Jim?
I'm doing well. I'm actually thrilled and honored to know that I'm number 360, which is funny because I do feel like I've come full circle. The first time you had me on, I probably didn't know what the hell I was talking about. And then, I became sort of a virtual Knicks beat writer of sorts for a few years. And now, and this is a confession I wanted to make before we got on air, I don't think I've ever been less prepared for one of these podcasts right now. So it's like we've come full circle.
Well, you'll fit in with us because we've been told that we don't know anything either. So
we've come full circle with no knowledge. So we've been doing this for a long time. Couldn't know less than most of our fans. So perfect. Let's talk Knicks. So have you been following the team closely this year?
I have, although this is the first time in five or 6 years that I haven't had League Pass. We're in the process of moving, my family and I, and so things have been a little hectic. And I have taken to doing something that I haven't done in years, which is box score stalking.
Wow.
I'm an honest citizen, and I don't like the idea of stealing weird Swedish feeds with pop-ups that I'm half convinced are melting my computer from the inside. So I've just been paying attention. Anytime they're nationally televised, I'll tune in, I'll watch the game. But I've mostly been sort of observing from afar and just trying to take in as many highlights and observations as I can secondhand. Once we get settled, I'm looking forward to booting up League Pass for at least the last 2 months of the season because I anticipate them being in the playoff hunt. But I've been paying attention, but it's been in a sort of weird, with a weird distance that I'm not entirely used to.
So if you're watching, so this week the Knicks they lost to Cleveland and they beat the Kings. I believe the Cleveland game was nationally televised. Did you see the absolute thrashing of the Knicks? I hope that's not your impression of the team.
It was fully to be expected. I mean, they were coming off an impressive win in Miami on the road, a team that's always given us trouble, whether or not they've had three superstars at their core or not. And coming home the next night, a Cleveland team that clearly has been coming off, something of an off week, had lost 3 straight before getting back on track, and wanted to make a statement. And certainly LeBron wanted to make a statement in the Garden in front of Phil, and so I wasn't entirely surprised. It was a horrible, horrendous, disappointing affair, but I like the cut of our jib coming back from that and winning our first game on the road against Sacramento, albeit closer than it probably should have been. So that showed me something, I feel like. Do you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, well, then, it's been showing us something a lot this year because there are lots of moments this year where the Knicks say that they'll come out weak in the third quarter, go down by a little bit, and you're like, okay, we're about to lose the game. And then the Knicks will come back and they'll win the game. Or it'll be a tight game, and we usually just lose tight games. And the Knicks win the game. And the fact that, like, we can get blown out one night and come back and win the next night, like we're supposed to, this is a different Knicks team than I'm used to. Which is
it's kind of a weird photo negative of what we're used to, which is a team that gets behind big early, claws back, and then falls short. Now we're the team that gets a big lead early, quakes in the third and fourth quarter, and somehow finds a way to hold on. So it's refreshing. We're learning how to win. We're learning how to win tight, close games, and I think that bodes well. I mean, certainly for this year. Assuming that this team remains in the playoff race for the rest of the season, which I think they will.
I think PNT said they went from fake comebacks to fake blowouts, which I'll take.
Yeah. As long as they're in the faking the winning category. At least as long as they're pulling off the wins, I don't care how they happen. I thought, like in the Kings game, Melo blows those 2 free throws, and the old Knicks, game gets tied, and they lose it in overtime, but they win, and you're like, oh, the game's we win. Okay, cool, awesome. It's
yeah.
kind
The
of
old
like,
Knicks lose on a James Johnson bank 3-pointer.
Yes. The old Knicks, everything goes wrong. It's also like you see even players that are having big nights against us. Like Towns I think he scored 138,000 points against the Knicks that one game
in the first quarter.
And the Knicks still won the game. And it's kind of and Cousins has gone off against the Knicks, and the Knicks still win the game. It's unusual as a Knicks fan. One thing I have noticed though is like in the past, like I watch all the Knicks games. I don't watch as much of the rest of the NBA. I try to, but most of my observations are based on players, or based on when they play the Knicks. So I remember for a number of years I watched Andreas Bargnani play the Knicks, and I was like, oh, he's pretty good. I mean, he lights up the Knicks every time we play him. Maybe he's not that bad of an acquisition. And then you watch a guy like that, and obviously he's not a good player. Then you watch LeBron James. Every time LeBron James comes to play the Knicks, it's like he's seeking to win the ring that night. I swear, it's like he just destroys us. I'm just amazed how good. I wonder. I'm like, I don't know. I watch him. It's just amazing to watch how badly they beat the crap of us. Do you think, how far away are the Knicks from actually competing with Cleveland? What are we missing?
How far are they from actually competing?
Competing, like legitimately being what are we missing, you think, to actually go to like be able to make a run at competing with the Cleveland? I know it's a lot. I know it's a big thing to ask.
Jalen Rose in the chat room said
we need more than 2 serviceable point guards. That's Exhibit A1, and that's being cast into pretty stark relief right now with Rose hampered by what seems to be a pretty minor injury, but anyone who's watched Derrick Rose knows that those things can fall off the cliff pretty quickly. And so you're relying pretty heavily on Brandon Jennings, a guy who, like LeBron, always had a knack for coming into the Garden and just absolutely torching us because of some past slight, which with Jennings we knew was the fact that we didn't draft him, right?
Right.
So we need some point guard depth. And I know Chason Randall was and is a guy that a lot of people have their eyes on. He was really impressive during the Summer League. I guess he struggled a little bit recently in the D-League, but what little I've seen of him and highlight reels or the few Summer League games I had a chance to see, he's an impressive guy. He's a smart player. He can obviously shoot. A really good defender, plus defender already. He doesn't quite have the sort of playmaking ability that you would want in either a starter or a number one backup. But he's someone that we can look to possibly fill that void. But we just need pieces. We have good pieces that are outplaying their projections, but we need better pieces than that. And so free agency is going to be huge. The draft is going to be huge. This is poised to be an historic draft, and whether or not we make it as an 8th seed and ended up having the the 15th pick or fall out into the lottery. I think there's going to be a lot of depth there, and I think we can get, a player possibly to help that cause. But I would say we're still a couple years away. We need Porzingis to make another mini to moderate leap next year, and for a couple other pieces to kind of fall into place.
Yeah, I guess you need KP at least to make a jump to the next level, even more so than he has. He has to make a jump each year, I guess.
Yeah, and this sort of mini slump that he's mired in, I think, we shouldn't freak out too much about it. It was bound to happen. I expect him to get back on track and finish the season around where he's been. 20 points, 8-ish rebounds, an assist and a half, block and a half. And that's a phenomenal second season for a 21-year-old player. And that bodes extremely well for us going forward. And I think Melo is starting to recognize that it's him who's going to start thinking about hitching his wagon to Porzingis. And if that's the path that we're headed on after this season, then I think the path forward becomes a little clearer.
What do you think? What do you think? Do you think Porzingis is getting tired? I mean, obviously, everyone goes through slumps. Is he just getting tired? Because obviously the NBA schedule is pretty rough. What do you think what do you think the fall off is the last 5-10 games?
I think it's probably a little bit of fatigue. He might have a few nagging itches here and there. It's also just a simple matter of teams doing their scouting and starting to pinpoint a player's weaknesses. When you burst onto the scene like he did a year ago, you're sort of an unknown quantity. Teams don't necessarily know what they're dealing with until they see you in person. They can watch as much film as they want, but until they are dealing with a 7'3" gazelle on the court, it's hard to account for. And so now that these teams are seeing him for a third, fourth, fifth, sixth time, they're game planning for him better. And they're making him work in ways that are maybe a little uncomfortable for him, but that's the great thing about this game is the great players adjust to the adjustments, and it's a constant chess match, and I fully expect him to be able to make the right move.
I mean, I feel like the big thing is they're trying to prevent him from getting the ball in the right spot, force him to take more awkward shots, which I think has hurt him a lot. I think the idea when you have guys, they one strategy I've seen used a lot is guys who are smaller but fast. I mean, obviously everyone's smaller than Porzingis, but guys who are 6'7" or 6'5" guarding him who are just faster, who can kind of deny him entry of the ball, which has actually been a pretty decent strategy against him. If you had to defend Porzingis, what strategy would you use?
Well, I think Brad Stevens set the template for this last year when he put Marcus Smart on him after KP had gone off in the first half, and that was Stevens' adjustment, was to put Marcus Smart, who's 6'4" in high heels, but about 230 on Porzingis. Someone who moves his feet laterally extremely well is obviously incredibly strong, and so Porzingis has the option to shoot over him. But when you have a guy in your chest like that, that can bother your shot no matter where you are on the floor. And so I think a lot of teams have used that as sort of inspiration for how they approach him, at least in spurts. You want a guy, again, who can move really quickly laterally, and you just dare him to shoot over the top of you. It's a shot he can make, but that doesn't mean it's an easy shot.
Right.
And so I wouldn't be surprised going forward if we start to see more of that, guys who are 6'7", 6'8", who are good lateral defenders, checking Porzingis for stretches.
But I think you're also right. It's kind of a matter of teams are always going to try to different things against him, and he has to just kind of go to the next level and be able to stop them and make them sorry for putting a 6'7" guy on him.
Yeah, and part of it's on Hornacek too, is to recognize that and put him in positions based on that matchup for him to succeed. And so Hornacek's a good coach, and I think with time he's going to figure that out as he starts to understand Porzingis' game a little better. So I'm not too concerned.
You just said something that I haven't heard about the Knicks in so long. You referred to the Knicks coach as being a good coach, and I think you're right. How crazy is that we actually have a good coach?
Oh, come on. D'Antoni clearly was a good coach. Woodson in fits and starts was a good coach. They just weren't great, and they weren't the ideal coach for the personnel that we had. With 2012-13 accepted. I like Hornacek. I do think the defense and every conceivable stat bears this out needs some serious work, and I don't think that Kurt Rambis is the guy to see that project through. But Hornacek is a really interesting offensive mind, and I think he's brought that to bear pretty impressively so far.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like the team is Hornacek seems like he's willing to try and adjust, which I really like. I saw he's tried 2 point guard lineups, he's tried small lineups, he's trying different things and making them work. I've also noticed I think there was some kind of stat where coming out of timeouts, the Knicks were like one of the highest percentages as far as making a shot out of a timeout of any team in the NBA, which is an impressive stat and an unusual stat for the Knicks. Defensive wise, do you think? The defense started off the year atrocious, and it's had some blowout losses.
Mm-hmm.
Where do you think we can get defensively with this squad? What's where as far as the pack can we be? Could this be a middle of the road defense, like a top 17, 15?
I don't think. No, I mean this year I don't think it can be a middle of the road defense. I think let's see, defense efficiency right now we're 26 out of 30, 110.5. I would be thrilled just to get to 20 or maybe just below, 19th or 20th. I think that would be a good step in the right direction. I do think our offense is going to continue to improve. We're 12th in offensive efficiency right now, 107.8. And if we can get into the top 10, I think that would be a great step in the right direction. So top 10 offense and a sort of mediocre to not very good defense in the 18 to 20 range, I think would provide grounds for hope going forward.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I look at this team, and it sounds like you look at it the same way, is that we're building something that in a few years we could really contend. That should be the goal, and kind of outside of the Noah contract, a lot more, everything else kind of makes more sense. The Noah contract is the only one where I'm like, why didn't make a lot of sense at the time and seems to make less sense now. In the sense of like, we're really not a win now team, we're a win and a little bit down the road team. I don't know. Do you think the team is do you understand the Noah contract? I haven't been able to understand it yet.
Yeah, you can't just chalk it up to paying for a locker room presence, right? And if this is the Noah that we're going to be seeing for the next 3-4 years, then that just makes our margins that much thinner in terms of what we can do on the fringes in free agency and so on. So I love Noah as a personality. I love him as a leader. I think he's going to be great for Porzingis' development, but you're essentially paying for, an extremely, it's like a luxurious coaching option at this point. And obviously his string of injuries early in the season don't bode well, but I'm hoping for the best and hoping that he can kind of find his groove. I don't think we have a better option right now. I don't think KP is ready to play with the 5 full time, although he's starting to log more minutes on a more consistent basis. Hernan Gomez is promising, but I don't think he's going to be starter material for at least a couple of years. So he's the best option that we have, albeit in spot minutes. And it also depends on the team that we're playing. I think Hornacek is tuned into that pretty well in determining what teams we can afford to play Noah against moderate to heavy minutes and which teams he sort of needs to ride the pine against. So it's going to be a delicate balancing act, and it will end up being a bad contract. I think that goes without saying, but maybe not an atrocious one because of all the other intangibles that he brings to the table. And they're intangibles that become tangible at a certain point. So that's what you have to hope for.
Yeah, no, I feel like because when you talk about defense, I feel like the key to us being a middle of the pack defense, which would be an amazing thing to achieve, is Noah at the middle being like not only being a defensive force in the middle, but also getting everyone kind of motivating the rest of the team to play defense. And that's been the biggest disappointment of the year. But you're right. If this contract could not be atrocious, I think we'd all be happy. What do you think of Cock? Do you think he should be getting bigger minutes? Like, would you put fourth quarter, end of games? Do you put Cock out there over him? Kyle
Do you know that Kyle O'Quinn leads this team in PER? And I'm not someone who evangelizes at the altar of PER by any stretch of the imagination, but he's leading the team in PER at 20.7.
Holy crap! I'm sorry to do this, but I had to double check this just because, not that you're a liar, but that was almost unbelievable. Wow.
Now I know he's come on strong of late, but 20.7.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, he's been. This is the guy we thought we had signed last year, I guess. And
yeah, exactly. Well, exactly, and maybe it's as simple as that. Maybe he just needed a year to kind of get his sea legs. A 59% true shooting percentage.
Yeah, I mean, we had our guest last week had made a point about how O'Quinn, you can't I kill him because he makes so many boneheaded plays, even though I know he's very talented. And the point was made, and I thought it was actually probably a pretty good point, is that all those years in Orlando, he barely got to play. Last year was his first year really getting to play. It's almost like last year was kind of his rookie year, so you have to give him some you can't jump all over him for any dumb mistake. He actually could get a lot better. He's looking
well, and also I think part of the frustration, at least on my part, with regards to O'Quinn last year, was he seemed to force the issue too often. So he had a 21.2 usage rate last season, and that's down to 16.8. I think he's picking his spots a little better. He's staying in his lane. He knows what he's good at, and he's rebounding at a better rate. He's defending at a better clip, and he's who, like you said, we thought he was going to be last year, and that's promising. But by no means a reliable long-term solution either.
I mean, he's a reliable long-term nice piece on the bench.
Sure.
That's all we can really. Obviously, he's not. I'm not looking at Kyle O'Quinn being like, "Wow, we've got the next Shaq," or he's. But I feel like right now we have at center we kind of
next Ralph Sampson maybe.
Yeah.
Is it too late for that?
I feel like at center we kind of have a three-headed kind of monster, because you're kind of none of them on their own. Noah right now on his own is not hey, this is our center, going to give it 30, 40 minutes a game. O'Quinn's not that, and Hernan Gomez is not that, but the three of them together can form a serviceable center, kind of.
Yeah, and as you start to carve out more minutes at the five for KP, and I going back to my admission of not being nearly prepared enough for this podcast, case in point, I haven't looked at KP's numbers at the five versus the four. I don't know. I'll try to look them up. But to the extent that we can carve out more minutes for KP at five, then it's more reasonable to have sort of a rotating carousel for all those other minutes, where you can hopefully rely on Noah during crunch time defensive minutes when the possessions slow down and they're at a premium and you need a good communicator on the floor. And everyone kind of knows their niche.
But I guess at this point right now, let's say 3 minutes ago in a tight game, do you have Noah out there or do you have Kyle O'Quinn out there?
Well, a lot depends on who's playing well, and again, the matchups. If we're talking Game 7 in a first-round series against the Cavs, which Marc is on right now, then you probably want Noah. This is someone who not only has been in that situation before, but who understands, who knows how to get in the guys' heads, and assuming he has two serviceable legs, which
assuming
I'm not really sure about at this point. Yes. I don't know. Again, I haven't watched enough this year to know whether Noah is really playing as poorly as his stats seem to bear out.
Oh, he has.
He has. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, he's
every once in a while I'll be scrolling through TweetDeck and I'll see passing quips about how Noah, quote, hasn't been playing that bad tonight. I'm really happy. I'm like, how bad has it been?
He's getting some offensive rebounds. He's getting some nights he's getting some assists. His defense has been pretty mediocre. And that's kind of you would, you could accept his 5 points a night if he was playing really good defense. And I would not expect a 31-year-old Noah, after all these surgeries, to be that great a defender. And he's kind of what I actually expect, which is frustrating because of his contract for the next 4 years. But
well, that's the thing when you're paying a guy $20 million a year, you don't want to say once every 2 weeks, he's not playing that bad tonight. Like,
well, let's move on to the big made up story of the week. Phil Jackson made some comments about Carmelo Anthony being a ball hog, and New York media, shit hit the fan. You're following the story?
Yeah, I am. And it's hard to know what to make of it. Part of you wants to chalk it up to Phil Jackson being a crotchety 70-something dude who is just tired of it and doesn't really give a shit what people think and will say what's on his mind regardless of how it plays in the media or in the greater basketball viewing public. But he also has a track record of this sort of thing, of being blunt for the purposes of trying to get through to a guy. I don't know if him and Carmelo have the kind of relationship to where an off-the-cuff remark, to a group of reporters is the way to do that. I do know that they have dinner on occasion, that they have each other's number, obviously, and text one another from time to time. I just don't know if Melo is the kind of player who responds to criticism like that. And go ahead.
The thing with the story is that I feel like I was losing my mind because people were talking about Phil Jackson, like, what the hell is he doing? Why would he do that? And crotchety old man, kind of what you said also. But the part of the story I didn't, and you also referenced this, but Phil Jackson's been doing this for years. He did this with Michael Jordan. He did it with Kobe. He wrote a book about Kobe. He, whatever reason, feels like his best outlet for getting players motivated is going through the media, calling them out a little bit, and using his Zen-like ability to get them to up their game to the next level. And I don't know what will work with Melo, because Melo, he's right. It's totally correct that his stats would be better if he didn't hold the ball as much. It would help the team. I don't think anyone's going to argue that. And maybe Phil is just in his mind like, Melo, we've talked about it. He's trying. I need to get him to the next level, and maybe this is the way to do it. I don't know why people are killing Phil about this.
Yeah, no, I think it'll blow over as these things always do, although Phil has been cropping up more and more with these sorts of awkward off-the-cuff moments more recently. But it's like one of two things, and I'm not sure which, if either is the right one to believe. Either he genuinely thinks that Carmelo can be that transcendent talent, even if it's for a fleeting year or two, and is trying to tap into him the way that he tapped into MJ and Kobe, or he knows that this has worked in the past, and he's just so overrun by delusions of grandeur that he thinks that it'll work, no matter who he's talking about. And I'm not sure, you know what I mean?
Yeah, but I mean, I feel like it's something that you don't know unless you try. It's worked with some of the greatest players of all time. I would say we back off Phil a little bit. Like, I'll kill him for the Noah thing. I'll kill him for some other moves he's made. But some of his comments, like, I think that we're too quick to react and be like, what the hell is he doing? You're like, well, he does have 11 rings. He does have some clue what he's doing. Someone sent us and this was something you kind of knew anyway, but they sent us the stats on Melo when he holds the ball and doesn't hold the ball. And basically catch and shoot, he's shooting almost 49% on the year and 45% from three. But when he pulls up, he's shooting 38% and 14% from three. And when he holds the ball for like 6 seconds or more, he's shooting like in the low 40s and 11% from three. Yeah. But when he holds the ball for less than 2 seconds, almost 50% from the field and almost 43% from three-point land. And this is throughout, like, this is the Olympic Melo. When he doesn't hold the ball, you know he's a lot better. And I don't know. It's the thing that we've been killing him for so long. Fans are starting to boo him a little bit now when he holds the ball too long at games. It's sometimes like it's. I feel like Melo at this point, it's not an easy guy to coach. Not in a negative way, but when you play in the league this long, you kind of feel like you know what you're doing, and you kind of probably take less of what the coach says to heart. So maybe you have to kind of take ratchet your methods up a little bit to really get through to the guy.
Someone, and I can't remember who it was, I wish I did, posited the theory on Twitter, and this was like a week or so ago, that at this point in his career, and given the sort of offense that the Knicks are running, is holding the ball just to catch his breath.
Yeah.
And it sounded crazy. And I thought about it. I'm like, could that be at least part of it? I don't know. But he's so set in his ways. And as you alluded to, he's clearly shown in the past, through 4 Olympics now, that he can be a different and more efficient player when he's surrounded by players that he genuinely respects. And let's not say he doesn't respect these teammates that he has. I think he genuinely respects Rose, Noah to a certain degree, and KP. But I still think he very much believes himself the alpha on this team, which is not the case on the Olympics teams that he's played on. So I don't know when that switch or how it can be flipped. And maybe it'll take another year of Porzingis' development for people to realize that he is now the sort of A1 alpha star in the team, and maybe that helps Melo find that Olympic Melo groove. But I don't know. It's interesting. I was kind of scrolling Twitter last night during the early part of the Kings game, and people were making comments about how he was getting rid of the ball really quickly. I don't know whether that lasted or not, but who knows if that's just a passive aggressive swipe at Phil or whether he was truly taking the advice to heart.
I mean, there was one play where they were playing like a vine of it on Twitter. They did where it was like Melo. It was like a pass. He got it and passed the ball within a half a second to Porzingis, and Porzingis dunked. And they were like, Melo's really listening to Phil now. But if you look at what are the potential outcomes? The potential outcomes in this situation, Phil makes the comments, Melo either just sticks to how he plays normally, or somehow it takes it in, tries to work on it, and gets better. There's no way that Melo hears what Phil says and then says, well, screw him, I'm going to play worse. Or I'm going to hold the ball longer.
That's true. No, I don't think he operates that way. I don't think he operates with that kind of malice.
Right.
Kobe did that.
I think his motivations can be a little ambiguous sometimes, but I do think he's a good guy at heart, and I do think he wants to win very deeply. But
yeah,
the clock is ticking.
The clock is ticking, and really, if he wants to win, taking like Phil's advice is probably the only way to kind of get if Melo becomes the guy who can shoot 50% from the field because he's not holding the ball and he's passing when he's double teamed. Suddenly, this team, we may not be competing with Cleveland just yet, but suddenly we're a lot better team, and it would make a huge difference.
But it's just the makeup of this team at this point, where part of the reason we're winning some of these games that we're winning is certain guys are stepping up on nights where other guys are cold. One night it's KP. The next night KP is cold and Melo steps up. The next night both of them are cold and D-Rose steps up. That's obviously not a formula you can exactly plan for, but when you're a tried and true scorer in the mold of Melo, when you have that one game where you're stepping up, in the absence of a lot of other people scoring, that can kind of feed that ego anew, I almost feel like.
No, I mean, it's a fair point. I mean, I feel like he puts a lot of pressure on himself to be the guy that, especially when the games are, when he feels like we're down, like I'm the guy that can get us back there. And he's not trying to be like, I'm just better than everyone. He's just trying to win the game. And this is how his comfort zone to try to win the game is to go I'll get us back in there. And he's been on so many bad teams where we kind of needed him to do that I understand why he kind of always goes there. So speaking of Rose, you mentioned Rose. Have you got a chance? So you said you haven't been able to watch every game, but what have you thought of Rose when you've seen him? Because I feel like Rose has looked a lot better than I expected.
He has. He definitely looks healthier than he's looked in a long time. That explosiveness is still there in bursts and sort of intermittently. It's not as consistent. It's not as start to finish accessible, but it's there. And, the vision is still hazy at best, based on what I've seen. But he's not shucking. He's not sort of falling back on bad habits. And based on the little that I've seen, and again, just sort of tracking the stats remotely, it's okay. Does that mean I want to sign him to a $75 million extension? No. And I had a pet theory heading into this season, and I don't know how much I still subscribe to it, but I still think it's worth thinking about. And that is, Rose is sort of a test case for what is possible at the point guard position in this offense. And obviously the offense is still evolving, and I don't think we've seen the sort of most advanced iteration of it this season that we will. But if Rose can turn in a solid season and get himself a good contract, preferably not here, maybe that entices other free agent point guards to take a look at the Knicks, because we're an improving team. We have an aging superstar in Melo, a budding superstar in Porzingis, and an offense that can fit that skill set at the point guard position.
So I assume this year they got Derrick Rose, and I feel like that Phil was saying, hey, the guy's still pretty young, even though he's been through a lot of injuries. If he can regain close to his old form, this could be a real big get for us. You take a chance, and the ceiling's still pretty high for him. And you also got Jennings. Jennings coming off injuries also, still pretty young relatively, and he could actually be pretty good for us. And the goal was, in my mind, was after this season, both guys their contracts are up after the end of the year. Ideally, one of those two guys would be resigned to a longer-term deal and become your main point guard. Seems like
I don't think Jennings is a candidate for that. I think he, at this point in his career, given his injuries, is a quality backup, a really quality backup. And I think he's embraced that role pretty well, and I'd like to see him embrace it for the future. But I don't want to see him be our full-time point guard by any means.
So you wouldn't sign Jennings, but you wouldn't sign Rose. Then what's the? It's not you didn't bring these guys here, but what's the point of bringing these guys here if these guys are healthy? Like obviously Rose, he's coming off a little bit of injury right now. But let's say over the course of the year, Rose plays 70 games, Jennings plays 70 games, relatively healthy season. What do you do as far as like you would just not sign both of them? What would you do?
No, I'd be more inclined to sign Jennings, but just with the understanding that the role that he had this year, i.e. primarily a backup, is the role that he's going to have going forward. And maybe he has different designs. Maybe he is looking to sort of work himself back to where he is considered, a starter in the league. I don't know. That would just sort of be where I'd lean.
Would you plan on getting your next point guard through free agency, or would you go, let's get some guy in the draft and develop him?
Remind me who the free agent point guards are coming up this summer. This is what I mean. This is how ill-prepared I am.
Jay, you have you have that in front of you, Jay?
Isn't we're a lock for Westbrook, right?
Yeah. Westbrook is going to. No one knows this, but he has the right to opt out of his contract and join the Knicks. He has to just prove that to opt out, though, he has to get a letter from a doctor proving that he's actually mentally insane.
It's a little known provision.
Yeah.
Yes, I've heard of it.
But yeah, Oklahoma was like, we'll leave that in there. There's no way he's actually going to get certified for that. But I feel like anyone they're going to get through, there's not. I don't have the names in front of me, but there's probably no one that's going to put up the numbers you're going to get out of the guy. They're not going to be that much better than anyone you're going to get from like Derrick Rose is probably going to be one of the better free agent point guards come this offseason.
Guys, we have Stephen Curry, Chris Paul. I mean,
yeah. They're all coming here?
Yeah, both of them.
Okay, cool.
Well, I think of the sort of top tier crop, we have the best shot at CP3, and it's still an outside, hyper remote shot. But he's great friends with Melo. Depending on how the Clippers season goes this year, even if they make it to the conference semifinals or conference finals and lose invariably to the Warriors, what are his prospects going forward on that Clippers team? To my mind, I think to the mind of a lot of other people, that whole experiment has kind of run its course, right? So he's looking for a change of scenery. He's already become first ballot Hall of Famer, global superstar in LA. Why not New York?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, though, the team if he leaves, the Clippers are still better than the Knicks. And if he stays there, they're still better than it. They have a pretty good record this year. None of us think they're going to take them seriously of winning anything. But to say, hey, I'm going to leave a better team to take my chances on a worse team, he's also going to be 32 years old next year. So you're going to say, hey, we're going to go into free agent and give a 4-year or 5-year deal to a guy that's probably about to go downhill.
But invariably he's going to go downhill. I don't think to quite the extent that a lot of people think. He's never been a guy whose bread and butter has been explosive athleticism. And he's had his fair share of injuries, but I mean, if there's a point guard who I feel like has a good shot of being durable and serviceable to good for a long time, it's CP3. Drew Holiday is another option. I can't imagine anyone wanting to stick around in that situation in New Orleans. What his ceiling is at this point is anyone's guess. Probably not much more than what we've seen. And then it kind of falls off a little bit after that. George Hill is an unrestricted free agent, but that Utah team is fun. It's exciting. I think they have a good thing going. So I don't know how possible it is that he leaves. So it'll be interesting. I mean, there are certainly options aplenty. And I think a lot depends on how the Knicks finish this season. And this gets back to, what I said earlier about making the playoffs. And I think the Knicks need to try to make the playoffs, not only for Porzingis' development and his confidence going forward, but to entice free agents in a really, really good free agent class to come and be a part of this, because slipping back in the lottery is going to help that cause, certainly.
No, I mean, that's a fair point. And I guess for Chris Paul, I don't want to get anyone misunderstand. I would love to have him on the Knicks. I just worry that he's becoming he'll be just another shiny name we're getting at the latter stages of his career. And I also feel like maybe we should stop. Like, he's one of those guys also that seems a little bit more pie in the sky. Like, we've been talking about him coming for years, but I don't know how serious Paul would be about coming here. And sometimes I feel like we get too unrealistic about who actually wants to play with the Knicks. And I know there's some connection. There's also just a matter of, like, we seem to change the roster over every season. I'm not to make a case, like, it wouldn't be like maybe Derrick Rose, and I can't believe I'm saying this, come back here on not a horrible contract, and if he stays healthy this year, you got to think going forward, the chances of him getting injured are kind of the same chances of anyone getting injured. It's not like he's such a heightened risk. If he can stay a second season of pretty healthy, he's not a bad point guard. If you can draft another point guard, have him be like Rose's understudy, and kind of develop from there. I agree. I don't think Jennings necessarily could be your first point guard. I just kind of saw this as more of an experiment of, like, hey, one of these two guys hopefully can emerge as being our point guard going forward. Because they're like, at 28, you're not really over the hill. And 28, in basketball terms, is a lot younger than 32.
No, and that's a completely fair point, and I wouldn't be opposed to that if that were the sort of stated goal. And if you're going to do that, this is the year to do it. Given the absurd amount of talent at the point guard position in this upcoming draft, even if we make the playoffs as a 7 or 8 seed, there's a good chance that one of these 5 or 6, prospective studs can fall all the way, 15 or 16. So it's not a bad idea, certainly. And there are options aplenty in this free agent class. So I think there are a lot of pieces to play with. And it'll be interesting to see how Hornacek and Phil come together to kind of figure out what that very important piece is going to look like going forward, to the extent that we are now entering a time when we have to start thinking about Porzingis as the cornerstone of the future.
There's actually a ton of good free agent point guards coming up.
Who else is out there?
40. And I know, like, Darren Williams is total watch, but, like, I'm looking at the Hoop Sites free agency rankings for next summer. And 40 is Darren Williams, 41 is Brandon Jennings, and 42 is Tyreek Evans. That's just three guys right there. And I don't necessarily want either of them to be my starting point guard, but it gives you a sense of what's available this summer.
It's Lowry, Holiday, Rondo, Teague, Livingston, George Hill.
I would take Teague. By the way, Tyreek Evans. I remember he was good at some point. I can't remember exactly when, but wow, he felt
it was his rookie year.
That was he looked like a guy that was going to be one of the better players in the league. Like he was emerging. Clearly, did not work out. But yeah, he's like one of those guys you're like, oh, he's still in the league.
Yeah. What are his stats this year? I know he got off to a really promising start last year, and he's another guy for whom, the injury bug just seems to be a constant scourge. Well, I'm not going to look up Tyreek Evans' stats.
One thing I actually just looked. She's averaging. Well, this is last year. Has he played this year? I don't think he's played yet this year. He was averaging 15 points a game last year.
Yeah, but he's always injured.
I mean, clearly he hasn't played this year yet. Yeah. Well, he's on the Pelicans, and the entire team is always injured. And I feel like Anthony Davis must have prior to the NBA draft must have shot a homeless man.
It's really sad. I feel for the guy, and he's stuck there for a little while. Unless the Pelicans deign to trade him, which I don't think they will. That's a situation that's not going to get better anytime soon. I don't think.
I always wonder how you can have a guy that good and not be able to make the 8th seed with a guy that good. It just blows my mind.
Part of it is the West is just loaded, but they've just done a really awful job of surrounding him with pieces that make sense.
Yeah. No, that's totally. I mean, obviously, it's obviously that's how it's worked out. So, I mean, he does seem like he's still one of the best players in the NBA, but his team does not play very well. He's
still young. He's got time. He'll have a second act, somewhere else in some big market, and I'm sure, exercise a lot of those demons.
Maybe the Knicks. You never know. At some point we'll start dreaming about him. So, the one thing I say Phil has done a better job than I expected, and they're not good every night, but the bench has actually been better than I thought it would be. I like the European guys, Kuz and Hernan Gomez. Look like they actually could be decent pieces going forward.
Yeah, Justin Holiday has had some promising stretches. Yeah, I think that was the biggest fear for a lot of people heading into the season was how paper thin the bench was. But they've certainly outperformed expectations, and they've kept the Knicks in games that maybe they had no business being in, and helped pull away in other games. So I think there's some pieces there that are ripe for sort of the long-term look at, and I like Hudds a lot. I wish he hadn't been summarily buried as soon as Lance Thomas got back into the rotation, but hopefully that sorts itself out sooner than later.
Yeah, no, that was he was getting a bunch of. It almost seemed like the guys getting healthy almost hurt the Knicks in the sense of some of the guys that you like were getting minutes. Once Noah came back and once Thomas came back, that meant Hernan Gomez and Kuz just they stopped getting minutes for a little while.
Yeah.
What would you give overall? It's only about a quarter through, so not maybe a little more than a quarter through the season. What grade would you give Phil on this team?
A B.
Yeah.
B. I think that's weighted heavily by the Porzingis pick, which I still think is inspired, and he listened to the right guy at the right time, and he should be credited for that. And he's obviously made some interesting moves on the fringes that could, work out well going forward. The Rose deal, that's going to be the big X factor here, is how that plays out, what it means for the future, whether he's around here long term or we replace him with someone else. But I give him a B for this season at least. I think, again, this is a team that has shown a lot more grit and sort of fire than I think a lot of people expected, and they're closing out games, that they wouldn't have the last few years, certainly. So, I'm relatively happy. I want to aim for a playoff run, and albeit one that lasts 4 games, but I think that'll be promising.
I feel like
promising step forward.
I feel like they can get about 45 wins, and that might get them the 7th seed. And if they get the 7th seed, they might go to the second round. Chance.
Yeah.
I mean, we play Cleveland. I think we all agree that Cleveland's not. They're not going to be Cleveland. But anyone else, in my mind, is fair game in a 7-game series. It's not absurd for them to beat Toronto or Boston, unless you think.
Yeah, although Toronto looked really good this year, but that 2 seed is kind of up for grabs. I could see Toronto holding on to it. Boston's obviously a compelling team that's starting to come together. I think that's sort of the key is to get that 7th seed because Cleveland is just they look like a juggernaut.
Yeah, no, Cleveland looks like the Knicks. There seems like their game plan against LeBron is eventually he'll tire and just not want to play against us. That's the only thing. That seems like the goal here because he just destroys us every time he plays us.
Well, the Cavs have shown they can win anywhere under any circumstances. So I don't know if getting the number 1 seed is as big a deal to them as it was in the past, but.
Yeah, no, but I still think they have so much. I mean, they still, even though the bench isn't amazing, but they still have so much talent. Between you have Kyrie, Love, and you have obviously LeBron, you're going to win most of the games you're playing. So, we have a bunch of questions from fans. You want to do some questions with us?
What's that?
We have a bunch of questions from the fans. You want to do some questions with us?
Absolutely. I mean, it depends on the question. I reserve the right to not answer them.
Yeah, it's fine.
We're nearing an hour, so we'll do lightning round.
Yeah, and most of the questions are about what you're wearing. It's like
Dimes and Knicks writes, "Peace, fellas. I just want to say what's up. I'm becoming a fan of your podcast. I've been a Knicks fan for over 30 years. What I do notice is that you guys are on the ledge a lot. Relax, fellas. It's still early in the year. They needed time to get chemistry. Still things to work on, but we're improving. You guys were giving Cock a hard time, and now he's been looking really good. Give Noah a chance. He'll bounce back by January. Keep up the great work."
Can I say this? I didn't know Cock was a thing.
It's our thing.
And I had to do the math. I did not the math. I had to do the letters really quickly on the fly and figure out what you were talking about. And then I played it off like I knew what you were talking about, but I didn't.
I just want to hear Clyde say it once.
I just want to see him. I hate when Cock shoots 3-pointers, but I want him to shoot 1 3-pointer. Just hear the Cock with the 3-pointer. Just the MSG. I would love to hear that once for the announcers.
Lorenzo writes, "Hey guys, if the Knicks make the Eastern Conference Finals, will Marc eat a valve cap?"
Probably. Yes.
Well, Marc, what?
Eat a valve cap. That's a reference from our comedy podcast.
There's no way you're not going to understand that one at all. Just it's a long story that. James, go to the next question.
We have a podcast called The Brink of Sanity. You could check that out on iTunes. It's Marc.
Comedy podcast.
Yes.
Yeah. Just I was talking about everything but the Knicks, basically.
Exactly. Nick writes, as well as we have performed, what mid-season trade would you guys like to see take place that is realistic?
Oh, boy.
I'm glad you added realistic.
Do we even have time for that?
We don't have to plug into the trade machine, but what do you think? What would be a reasonable guy to move, and can you get any? Who in the roster would you move? I feel like there's not a lot to trade at this team.
I honestly don't know. I don't think the Knicks have any interest in making a deal this time around. I mean, you never know. Circumstances change, and based on the trajectory that Melo and Phil's relationship has taken the last couple of weeks, if it sours even more and he waives no trade clause, then obviously things change. But I don't know. I really don't think the Knicks are going to be in the market.
Yeah, if they make a move,
if they are, it's going to be for a third point guard.
Which is, they don't really have much that you can trade at this point. It's not like the Knicks have a ton of assets. It seems like a bad idea to trade like Hernan Gomez or say Kuz. You're not going to get a ton back for them, and they look like decent players to develop. And we're not.
They can move O'Quinn. They can sell high on O'Quinn. They can move Holiday, who again has been certainly serviceable. So whether those two guys are one of them, and an asset can fetch you a backup point guard. I don't know, but I don't even know if it's worth it at this point.
Maybe some team wants Noah. Maybe some team is seeing what we're not seeing in Noah. He's moments away from just taking off to being the defensive player of the year again.
Or maybe they're trying to tank.
Maybe a team that wants to tank is like, I want to tank. The Philly's like, we're ready to tank for the next 4 years. Give us Noah.
Baron Carter writes,
"Oh man,
would you
don't put it past them."
Would you rather have James Dolan or Donald Trump as the Knicks owner? Maybe Trump's wall will be good defense for the Knicks.
Ooh, shit, I'll take Dolan. Sorry.
I don't know. I might take I don't love him as president, but I might take Donald Trump as our owner. I don't know.
At least he likes the Blues. He's got that going for him.
Jason writes, Phil Jackson's comments on Melo, the stats are overwhelmingly support Phil. Why can't Melo understand it? We also didn't mention that Melo's averaging a career low in assists, so that might also be why Phil said that.
Well, I feel like also
he's not having a bad year. He's not having a bad year. I mean, he's got a 19.5 PER. He's had games. He's single-handedly won a couple of these games at least.
I'm not counting the game he hit the game-winning shot after shooting 12% for the game, though.
The thing with Melo is, if he was anyone else, you'd be fine with it. But you also feel like Melo could be better. He's really good. He could be even better. And I don't. It's awkward to be called out in the media, and so it's not like Melo's never gonna. You're not gonna be asked Melo about, hey, you hear what Phil did when he called you out, and Melo will be like, oh, totally justified. He's gonna be kind of. It's an awkward thing for him to respond to, and we'll just have to see on the court. Does he really respond on the court? It doesn't motivate him, but this is Phil's style. I don't think anyone should be really surprised by his style.
Yeah.
Strive writes, is the local media trying to ruin the Knicks season with all these fake news stories? I think they're just. I don't know.
I mean, this is it's the way it's always been. These ridiculous, sort of forgettable stories that, had they happened on any other team, would have been mentioned and forgotten about in 24 hours. Spawns its own news cycle with this team, and we should be used to it by now. I don't know if the players ever get used to it, but it's not like this is anything we've never seen before.
I think it's also partly people who get paid by the article and or have a certain amount of articles they need to write per week.
Right.
Then you just
how the news works, basically. Like you have even though there's no news, you have to write something. So let's create something. Let's ask the Knicks. Have you guys talked about extending Derrick Rose? And they're like, oh, it's a quarter of the way through the season. Why would we even be talking about it? Oh, you're not talking about it. I see.
Yeah. Exactly.
Met and Nick Fan for Life writes, should the Knicks trade Melo to the Clippers for Blake? Seems like a better fit for both players.
I don't know if the Clippers do that, particularly if they feel like CP3 is bolting after this year. Then they want to do everything in their power to hold on to Griffin and have him be the sort of centerpiece. So I don't know. In theory, yes. And you could say the same thing about, well, up until a few weeks ago, you could have said the same thing about Kevin Love in Cleveland, but he's been on an absolute tear this year, and I think that comparison no longer applies. But in theory, it makes sense, but I just don't think it I don't know.
I also have not been able to find he's not been able to find our podcast. We'll write back to him. Our transition to the Almighty Bowler Network at times was not smooth. Anthony writes, I saw some stats the other day where Melo's percentage when holding the ball 2 seconds or less, 49%, field goals 4 seconds, 47%, 4 seconds to 8 seconds, 41%. Hashtag Phil is right.
Yeah.
Yeah. No, still right because he actually has looked at those stats, or aesthetically it just displeases him that someone would hold on to the ball that long. That's the question, right? How in tune is Phil into those sort of
advanced stats? I don't know how tuned he is to that, but I mean, any of us watching Carmelo know that he seems to shoot a lot better when you pass in the when he does make the quick decision, everything just goes a lot better. And what I kill is just I want him to. I don't care if he can shoot a lot. Just he gets the ball, make a quick decision. You shoot right there, or you pass the ball. Don't try to find your shot.
Anthony writes, are we overreacting to the Knicks loss versus the Cavs? Fourth game in 5 nights and the second game of back-to-back with no Rose. Joan Rose in the chat room said they were trying to reenact the Red Wedding.
Do you think... So the Knicks are playing...
We're overreacting.
I know this is outrageous for the NBA to actually do this, but the Knicks are playing Golden State, I think later this week. Should the Knicks just take the night off? Should you just go into the game going hey, we're just not going to beat Golden State. Let's not push anyone tonight, and let's just, it's a long season. Let's give guys a chance to rest, and that's be the game plan from moment one.
Pull a Popovich?
Yeah. Is that insane to do?
I want to see Sasha Vujacic play 48 minutes.
The NBA would be they're you can't, no, we were really trying. You played Sasha 48 minutes. Yeah, we were trying really hard. Sasha and Baker are two 48-minute tandem from the backcourt.
Yeah, well, with this road trip, we won in Sacramento. It's not inconceivable, particularly with a day of rest between them, to win tonight in LA and again in Phoenix on Tuesday. And if you win the first 3 games of the road trip, I don't care if you get blown out by a combined 150 points against Golden State and Denver. 3-2 West Coast swing isn't anything to scoff at.
You like them tonight against Lakers?
No.
No?
Just saying yes. No, I don't know. Yeah, I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a close game.
Lakers started off good, but they've not been playing so well lately.
No, they haven't. Yeah, they've come down to earth a little bit. It's going to be a close one. I hope the Knicks win. It's a trap game, though, a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, the Knicks used to be everyone else's trap game, so it's nice that we have trap games.
Triple G writes, should Hornacek win Coach of the Year if the Knicks can clinch the 3rd seed in the playoffs?
Well, that ain't happening. But if by some absurd machination they do, then I think he's in the running for sure.
I would agree with that. Do you see Jeff Hornacek being coach of the Knicks for 10-plus years if we make it far in the playoffs? I think it's rare for any coach to make it 10-plus years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Virtually impossible.
I mean, there's only how many recent guys have done that in any team?
Other than Popovich. And I think
he's the only one with 10-plus years right now, right?
Yeah, I mean, right now.
Who is?
Pop is the only one right now with 10-plus. Pop is the only one to have that kind of tenure right now.
Yeah, the coach of Dallas.
Wait, how long has Carlisle been in Dallas?
I was just about to say, Carlisle is coming close. I think it's his 7th year.
How long was what's his name in OKC?
Scott Brooks?
Yeah, how long was he there for?
5.
I guess 5 years even seems like a long time these days.
And he was on the hot seat for the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you start Kendrick Perkins for 3 years.
It would be shocking if the Knicks had anybody be their coach for the next 10 years. But Hornacek looks pretty good so far, so we'll see what happens.
Can Porzingis win the most improved player over Giannis and Butler this season?
That's going to be tough. Giannis is a monster.
Porzingis is also in a huge slump. He's going to have to snap out of for that to even be a conversation.
Yeah, obviously he keeps playing the last... Yeah. Yeah.
If the Knicks had a mascot, who would you prefer? A Statue of Liberty or New York Pizza?
Just a walking, flopping slice of pizza. I could get behind that.
Yeah.
I don't know. Statue of Liberty. Yeah.
Should the Knicks organization take more European players and develop them like the Spurs do?
Yes.
Well, they've at least made gestures towards that, right? Players we have on our roster now, and I think they're starting to place more of an emphasis on Westchester and the talent that cycles through there. The Spurs are obviously the A1 template for a reason, so they should, whether they will or not, who knows.
Should we be going to like unexplored areas, like be like, should we have a scout in like the North Pole, being like, anyone tall here?
I mean, I would rather the Knicks be scouting other countries rather than trying to recreate the 2009 Lakers bench.
Yeah, I feel like the Knicks they're scouting with. Previously, their scouting consisted of, hey, let's watch highlights from five All-Star games ago. It'd be nice. The Spurs obviously know what they're doing. Let's emulate the guys that know what they're doing, and it seems like the Knicks are doing that a little more. Going after, they've gotten some. I mean, obviously, Hernan Gomez, Kuz, they're decent finds, and obviously Porzingis was a pretty darn good find.
Yeah, and do you guys know if Kuz and Hernan Gomez? Well, and Hernan Gomez obviously has the Porzingis connection. That's probably how he got on Clarence Gaines' radar screen to begin with. But was Kuz a Clarence Gaines guy as well, or?
I'm not sure. I think Kuz had a really good showing at the Olympics, though, and I think that's what got them on the radar.
Okay.
No, Kuz was the Knicks. Didn't the Knicks sign Kuz before the Olympics? I'm pretty sure they had him.
No, that happened. I thought that happened later in the summer.
No. Because I remember during the Olympics they were there. We kept getting updates on the Knicks players, including Kuz.
Oh, right. Yeah, you're right.
No,
okay.
Someone was saying how the Knicks had like a new European scout or something, and the guy
okay.
like kind of like said like, you guys should check the guy out.
That guy should get a raise.
That guy should get a raise. Obviously, I mean he's 27 years old, I think, so he's a little bit older. But you have to think like he can play 3 or 4 years and like be pretty good. Like he's not going to be a star player, but he could be to win this league. You need a solid bench. He could be a very solid guy off the bench. So,
would you
Absolutely.
give up the Triple G writes? Would you give up the ability to love to see the Knicks win a championship before you die?
my wife would be disappointed.
You're assuming I haven't already. I mean, no. Call me flowery, but no, I wouldn't. That's
Would
awful.
you?
Part of the reason I want to see them win is because I love them.
Okay, how's this? Would you lose the tip of your pinky for the Knicks to win the next 3 titles?
Oh, 100%.
You're losing a body part. I was going for. What about
no anesthetic or anything. You can chop it off with a goddamn rusty steak knife. 100%.
the entire pinky and 3 titles?
By the way, this is what happens on Brink for
I think
hours
the
at a
tip of the
time.
pinky.
Well, no. Now I'm changing it a little bit.
Oh, yeah. I'm like trying to grab things with my thumb and 3 fingers. So yeah, sure, why not? I think I could do it.
How about you lose the ability to walk for an entire year and we get 5 titles?
Yeah.
Okay. I won't. Okay. I'm not going to keep upping the ante, so we can go on.
Would you
Just
go?
tells you where my priorities are in life, obviously.
You're like, this ends with like, yeah, paraplegic, Eastern Conference Finals.
Would you go streaking in Times Square?
I would probably say no, but I'd have to think about that one.
Would you go streaking in Times Square if somehow the Knicks win a championship this year?
Can I be assured that I won't be arrested?
Sure.
Then yeah.
How ridiculous is it to buy food in MSG that's double the price when you can buy it half cost outside? I kind of like the problem.
I
is
never
like,
buy food at arenas. It's the most. You eat out before you go.
yeah.
That's what makes it sort of a night out. You get dinner and then you go to the game, and get a couple of beers at the game or whatever. But yeah, I'm not interested in paying $20 for a hamburger.
When I could pay $20 for a beer instead.
Exactly.
Is that all for Twitter?
Same nutritional value.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, actually.
If you could have any 3 Knicks players that ever lived be your best man, who would it be?
Any 3 Knicks players ever to be my best men, or just in my wedding?
Yeah, your best man at your wedding.
Yeah, any 3.
Any 3?
Yeah.
Okay, Oakley, I didn't even have to think about it.
Yep. Same here. I got my next 2.
Ronaldo Balkman.
Nice.
Okay.
For sure. Yeah, Oakley, Balkman, and Melo. Just because it's had such a soft spot for him, and my wife thinks he's hot. So
I would go Clyde and DeBusschere.
Why? Why DeBusschere? That's glad I get, but
I saw, they had that special on like the 70s Knicks, and he was always playing pranks, and he seemed like a funny guy.
Okay.
I like that.
What about JR? Just so you can have the conversation of, hey, is your best man going to show up today?
Yeah, that's a good call.
I feel like if we would have a hangover situation if JR was.
He definitely shows up right before the vows.
Mm-hmm.
He definitely just misses the wedding. You're like, I can't believe he has the ring.
Yeah, exactly. He gives it to Rihanna. How sad is it when the Knicks media are too concerned about being manipulative instead of praising Knicks?
I didn't catch that one. Sorry.
How sad is it when the New York media are too concerned about being manipulative instead of praising Knicks?
They've been around enough to know what works and what gets clicks and what keeps their paycheck coming in.
Do you believe writers can be annoying when asking players the same question in different context?
Well, it's a huge reason why we're seeing this sort of breakdown in media-player relations.
Yeah.
And that would be too. Players are sick of answering the same questions over and over and over again, and the media doesn't sort of drive their career and their brand in the same way that it used to. They don't. The media needs the players far more than vice versa, which isn't how it always was.
Do you see Porzingis starting in the 3-point contest, and if so, do you believe he can beat Clay?
I think he will be in the 3-point contest someday, and I mean, anyone can beat anyone in 3-point contest on a given day. Do I think he can win? Sure, if he gets hot enough. I think he's only scratching the surface of what he's capable of on the perimeter as he works on his form, as he works on his mechanics, and they become more consistent. But it'd be great to see him in the 3-point contest. I think it'll happen.
Last one, the 4-year-old writes, we are currently the 5 seed. Where do you see us finishing?
7 days.
Yeah, that seems pretty reasonable. Just not to make this too long, but we have a couple more questions on Facebook, just to hit you with a couple more. Justin writes, what is our recipe for smashing Cleveland open and feasting on the sweet, sweet juices inside? After that bottle-flipping gibberish, I just want to see them cry. Did you care about the bottle-flipping stuff?
Trading Carmelo Anthony for LeBron James, that's the recipe.
Did you care about the bottle flipping stuff though? Like they were playing a bottle game during the second half while the Knicks weren't competing. Like they made a big deal about the Cleveland disrespecting, and I feel like, hey, if you're killing us, you could do what the hell. You could play jacks. You could do whatever the hell you play.
Well, there are 2 questions here. There are 2 questions here. Do I think LeBron knew what he was doing? Yes. Because for the simple fact that we've never seen him, at least as far as I know, flipping bottles on the sidelines during a blowout. So I do think he knew what he was doing. So I think it's a big deal now.
Yeah, I mean, I do think he knew. I agree with that. I agree that he knew what he was doing, and I feel like you can't give anyone shit for disrespecting you if you're not playing good enough basketball to make them respect you. Like, I don't know.
Yeah, it's a game within the game.
That's why I was always a fan of trash talking. It's like if you don't want somebody trash talking, don't get blown out by 20 points. I don't think we need all these technicals for trash talking. Just stop losing.
Ben writes, I have a question about Draymond Green. He seems to regularly kick people, mostly the nuts. I'm from the UK, and if a sportsman consistently did this, he'd be universally hated and media would be all over him. It seems to be glossed over in the US media. My question, I guess, is that I'm coming to New York soon. Can I kick random people without any repercussions?
Oh, man. Well, you're asking the wrong guy. I am a unapologetic Draymond Green super fan, evangelist, have been since his days at Michigan State. I'm a huge Spartans fan. So I'll apologize for anything just short of manslaughter when it comes to Draymond Green. And I do think, like LeBron, Draymond knows exactly what he's doing. And he knows sort of exactly where that line is. Or at least he knew where that line was before he got suspended in the finals. But you're asking the wrong guy. I love Draymond.
In a related question, if let's say the Golden State's playing the Clippers in the the Western Conference Final, and Draymond Green does commit manslaughter, will they wait till the finals to suspend him?
I think he'd be suspended indefinitely. Let's say that.
If you make $20 million a year, you're allowed to kick people in the nuts. By the way,
that's actually Donald Trump is actually passing that. That's in his first day in
There's
office.
precedent for that as well. Yeah.
Executive order.
Q writes, should we forgive all of Noah's missed free throws from now on? Why is Noah so bad on free throws this year? I know his shooting form is bizarre, but he's actually always been an okay free throw shooter.
It's easy to get in your own head on the free throw line. And people talk about this all the time, and it'd be interesting to sort of quantify it if there were ever possible to do so. But once that slip starts, it's hard to stop. It really is.
Q writes, can you guys bash Cock and Lance Thomas some more? I think it's working as they've been playing their best basketball recently. We have a thing on the show.
Means.
Yeah, the more we bash someone, the more they immediately come out and play really well. So,
except for Noah, who still sucks.
Yeah, we bashed him last week. It hasn't worked out. Frank writes, what do you guys think the motivation was behind Phil's comment about Melo holding the ball too long? I initially thought that the obvious, that was Phil simply trying to give Melo a wake-up call. However, after thinking about it a little more, it could be Phil turning on Melo in hopes of pushing him to accept a trade. Just a few weeks ago, Phil made his posse comment about Melo's good friend LeBron, and now this.
That's an interesting conspiracy theory. I don't think that's what's going on, but who knows?
I guess the next comments to come out would be Phil offhandedly to a reporter saying, "Yeah, Melo's too scared to waive his no trade clause," and see what happens. Andrew writes, would you trade Noah for a stick? Gillum writes, what % chance do you give a healthy Knicks team to win a playoff series against a healthy Cleveland? And then Cleveland without Irving and Love, and then Cleveland without James. What percentage of chance would the Knicks have against Cleveland 7-game series?
0.000.
Okay, so
7.
Irving and Love, they both break their legs before the series. Knicks against Cleveland without Irving and Love.
I go 60.
I'm going to say 39.
Okay. And then Irving and Love are healthy again. LeBron James out with a broken leg.
Uh, 45.
I feel like we get to 50 there. I mean, LeBron's the big key here.
I know.
I asked this actually after the game. Knicks Cleveland. Cleveland's only allowed to play 4 guys on the court at a time. Do the Knicks have a shot?
At that point, I would say like 60, 65. Yeah.
Gillum writes, who do you think has a better chance to ever be Defensive Player of the Year? Porzingis or Towns?
That's a great question. I'm going to say Cat by the slightest of margins, but they both have an outside shot, certainly, of taking that home.
Cat definitely seems like the more traditional guy to get it. Gillum writes, at what salary per year, also with 4 years, would you feel comfortable with Noah on this team? Would that be enough to sign another impact player? So what salary? He's getting $72 million over 4 years. What salary would actually make sense over 4 years?
48. I mean, you know.
I think Kylo Quinn's salary actually would make me feel totally comfortable. I think
or that, yeah.
Gillum writes, yeah. No, I actually, if he was making like $10 million a year, I wouldn't be so upset. I think it's the extra $8 million that blocks us from getting other free agents. Gillum writes, who would you have signed instead of Noah, and what contract? Don't say Pachulia because he went to Golden State for less to win a title. He went to sign for so little with the Knicks. So, what option would you have taken instead of Noah?
Robin Lopez.
There you go.
Yeah, right.
I still think they could have done the trade without Robin Lopez, but that's a hard. There weren't so many guys that you really. They would have overpaid for someone else probably. I just would have liked it to be a shorter deal.
Bring Ben Wallace out of retirement.
Rashid worked for us last time. Gillum writes, KP has been shooting bad lately. What do you think he needs to learn to get over his bad patch? How to exploit smaller guys?
Yeah, exactly. It's not a matter of anything that he's. Yeah, it's adjusting to the adjustments, and he'll learn.
Yeah. And if you're in a bad position, don't take the shot.
Yeah, he's been a little. It's sort of gone without saying, but it's been a little trigger itchy at times.
I mean, I don't want him to. I prefer him being a little bit trigger happy because I don't want him to stop shooting. But yeah, he has definitely been. Gillum writes, I think an apology to Lance is owed. He's played hard through injury, which should be something the fans love. He's the best Knick 3-point shooter aside from Willie, and he's been best defensive percent field goal. And there's an advanced stat thing which he sent us, which basically field goal percentage against basically players shoot the worst when they're being guarded by Lance Thomas versus anyone else on the team. Do you think the Knicks? Do you think fans kill Lance Thomas too much?
I think he's obviously a serviceable defender and multifaceted. I do think he looks for a shot a little too readily at times.
I wish he could make that shot. Like I feel like he shoots sometimes weird shots. I feel like he should be able to get to, I kind of was hoping this year he'd get to the point where he can make some of those shots. But you're right. I feel like a lot of times he's also on second units where you need him to be a little more of a scorer. Gillum writes, I watched Whiplash yesterday. Do you think Phil is like, this is the last question. I watched Whiplash yesterday. Do you think Phil is a bit like J.K. Simmons' character that tries to push his players by commenting on them like he did with Melo? Or maybe he wants to do the whole NBA better. So he also comments on players that are not on his team, like James. Also, have you seen the movie? And did you like it a lot?
I haven't seen the movie, although I've heard great things. It's on my list. So I can't speak to that.
I don't.
But I do know sort of the basics of the storyline. Seems like an interesting comparison.
A band coach, or what's the? I don't know what's.
He's like a drumming coach, right? Or
Jay?
I have no idea what we're even talking about.
It's a movie. It's a popular movie.
It's a Drumline 3? What are we?
Yeah. So it's White Men Can't Drum. I don't know. That's all our questions from the fans. Jay, was there anything else? Any other questions that I missed?
No, that's it.
I think we've kept you on probably a little bit too long. In fair, but we really appreciate. The Knicks look like they, in my mind. Well, first of all, this is the best the Knicks have looked with you on the show. So we have only hopefully good things going forward.
Oh, I appreciate that. It's very funny. Well, I want to leave you guys with this, so I'm going to keep you around a little longer.
Oh, please.
I don't know if you caught this, but it happened, I want to say yesterday. and it was sort of this little nugget buried in Newsday story. I think it was Ellen is on, and is talking about the Knicks' sort of European contingent, and Porzingis had. It was about Porzingis, Kuzminskis, and Hernan Gomez. All their mothers played like semi-professional or professional basketball, and it was an article about that sort of interesting thread between the three of them. And Porzingis was talking about playing growing up, and the one piece of advice that his mother would always impart on him, and she still does to this day. Did you see this by any chance?
No.
When she feels like he's not playing aggressively enough, she tells him to eat a razor, or what in Latvian translates to, roughly, I assume, eat a razor.
Glad he's not taking that literal.
I just thought that was the most brilliant, beautiful thing a mother could ever tell a son. And I've been thinking about it ever since. And I want it to become a hashtag. And I think more people should say that when they feel like someone's not stepping up. Eat a razor.
Yeah, Porzingis from 3. Hashtag eat a razor. Or is it more
exactly?
Or is it more? Hey, we're getting crushed tonight, guys. Eat a razor.
Yep. Either way, it's got a lot of mileage there. I feel like. Anyway, I thought that was as charming as it was disturbing.
Maybe this is like the Knicks' new Moneyball strategy. Is like, hey, let's find guys whose moms played semi-professional. Maybe that's the key to really like. It's one thing if your dad's pushing you, your mom's pushing you in basketball talent, then maybe you'll end up being really good. I don't know enough about like maybe Kobe's mom's played. I don't know. We should do more research into the successful NBA players and how good their moms were at basketball.
I'll get right on that.
That would be a really interesting study, actually. Yeah.
It would be interesting also, like if you go to like interview players and you're like, I want to talk about your mom, and they're like, do I have to punch you?
What?
No. I want to know, like, did your mom ball? I didn't mean it like that. Oh God, this is getting bad fast.
But yeah, I just love this picture of a 6-foot platinum blonde Latvian woman telling her super tall son to eat a razor, which feels like he's not being tough enough. I just can't get that image out of my head.
That's awesome.
That is actually a pretty good line, though. Eat a razor. I wouldn't like mind if the Knicks if you're gonna add if they're ever gonna add other things to the jersey, like you're gonna add some advertisements, whatever. Like also let's add the slogan "Eat a razor."
The Razor Eaters would be a cool D-League team name.
Better than the Westchester Knicks.
Yeah.
Better than the Westchester Knicks.
Yeah, I like it.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us, Jim.
Oh, guys, it was a pleasure as always. And I think we have reason to be hopefully or cautiously optimistic, and looking forward to hanging out again soon.
Anything else you want? Anything you want to plug or?
No, not really. Just stay tuned to the Cauldron. Exciting things are afoot. I know I've been saying that for what seems like forever, but for reals this time. Check us out. Cauldron.si.com.
All right, so check out the Cauldron. You could follow Jim on Twitter, JPCAVAN. And
that's
yeah.
it.
Thanks for. And by the way, you said you weren't prepared. You were obviously very prepared.
Yeah, you had way more stuff than we did. So.
Oh well.
Yeah, we never have that much to say. So. What's
I'll
your
be more
just
prepared next time?
Just curious, what's your just non-Knicks? Just what's been the biggest rise to you in the NBA so far this year? Or
biggest surprise.
Westbrook's streak of triple doubles just ended. By the way.
Yeah, that has to be it. I was a little wary about what he would be capable of, and I knew it was a lot. I didn't think it was this much. It's absolutely bananas.
He only had 37, 12, and 6 today, so they should probably trade him.
Harden also, I mean, if not for Westbrook, Harden would be kind of a bit even bigger star because he's averaging like 12 assists a game. It's insane.
Yeah.
Well, D'Antoni predicted that. He said, I want him to average 14, or maybe he said lead the league, but he's doing that, right?
I mean, how many guys who are who who didn't play, who weren't point guards, just suddenly become the team's point guard and average as many assists.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
Did you know that Porzingis
storylines? We've been saying this for years. It seems like the NBA just keeps getting more and more interesting every year in terms of the various narrative threads, and this year is no exception. It's great.
Did you know that Porzingis donates $500 to New York City basketball every time he blocks a shot?
I did know that.
New York City basketball.
And he tells him to eat a razor.
Yeah, eat a razor.
All right.
They're like, what the hell do you mean? You mean that literally?
No. My mom said that.
Well, thanks again, Jim. We'll do it again soon. Good luck on everything you're working on, and with your move again. So
yeah, thanks guys. I appreciate it. We'll definitely do it again soon. Eat a razor.
All right, eat a razor.
Eat a razor.
Bye, love. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye. It's all over. Goodbye. It's time to go. This is the end. Say goodbye. You better go away. I'm gonna leave you. It's the end. Goodbye. Goodbye. Just leave me alone. Feels so good to say goodbye. I'm sick and tired and I'm saying goodbye. Goodbye, girl. Goodbye, 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 everybody.
Cabela's is coming to Northern Virginia with a spectacular new store in Gainesville. Find everything you need for hunting, fishing, camping, and shooting sports, plus much more. Join us for our grand opening celebration Thursday, March 9th at 10 a.m. Be one of the first 500 in line and receive a Cabela's gift card worth up to $500. Plus, a chance to win one of 3 Remington firearms. See store for details. Don't miss Cabela's grand opening in Gainesville, located off I-66 and Highway 29 near Virginia Gateway.